This lecture introduces learning styles through the VAC or VARC framework: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. The goal is to understand what learning styles mean, how the idea developed historically, what characterizes each style, and how a simple VAC assessment is structured and interpreted. Learning styles are described as different approaches to learning, how people prefer to take in information and process it. The material emphasizes that preferences are influenced by experience, different intelligences, and personality factors, like preferring to learn alone or in groups. These preferences can shape everyday tasks, not just classroom learning. A key point is transfer to daily life. The way someone learns can affect how they handle routine tasks, like reading a map or following a recipe. So learning styles aren't presented as purely academic. They're framed as a general way people interact with instructions, information, and problem-solving in real situations. The source uses a simple example: learning a new piece of technology. One person reads instructions end-to-end, another learns by listening or watching others, and another jumps in hands-on through trial and error. It's a quick way to see how learning preferences vary, and also how the situation can push someone towards a different approach. Historically, interest began with memory and oral versus visual methods. In 1904, Alfred Binet's intelligence testing fueled attention to individual differences. Montessori's early work emphasized learning through action. After a mid-century decline, Bloom's taxonomy in 1956 and the Done and Done model in 1976 helped re-energize learning style thinking. The material also notes that individualized learning styles became especially popular in the 1970s. From the 1980s onward, many models appeared, and by the 1990s, there was a push for teachers to adjust curriculum so different styles had an equal chance to succeed, an idea that later expanded with online course personalization. A more recent theme is the shift from pedagogy, teacher-centered instruction, to andragogy, which is more student-centered. The argument is that educators should recognize different learning styles and tailor instruction accordingly. The material frames this as increasingly important as teaching moves beyond one-size-fits-all delivery. One widely used categorization is Fleming's VARC model, often simplified as VAC, built around sensory modalities. Visual is learning by seeing, auditory by hearing, and kinesthetic by doing. The text also links this to earlier NLP ideas, where senses are described as representational systems, used to build an internal model of the world. An important nuance is that people may not fit a single box. Some have a strong preference, while others are more evenly mixed, bimodal or trimodal. The dominant mode can also shift eye context. A person might prefer one style for lectures, but another for learning a physical skill or using a new tool. The material suggests a developmental angle. Young children are described as primarily kinesthetic learners, with visual and auditory preferences emerging later. It also claims a theoretical basis that preference is influenced by genes, but can change and develop, especially when neural pathways are still being established in childhood. For visual learning, the text defines it as associating ideas and data with images and visual techniques. It reports a high prevalence, around 60 to 65%. Visual learners tend to remember what they see, use mental imagery, and often prefer mind maps, diagrams, color coding, and written notes to organize information. Typical suggestions include writing things down, copying what's on the board, using flashcards, and highlighting key words. Visual learners may like seeing aims and objectives up front, and they can be distracted by movement while concentrating. Preferred assessments often include essays, diagramming, maps, or demonstrating a process. Auditory learning is described as learning through listening, with speaking often supporting understanding. The material estimates about 30% prevalence. Auditory learners may struggle with written instructions, but understand well in lectures, Q&A, and discussion. They often remember how information sounded, including changes in tone or pitch. Strategies suggested include recording class notes and replaying them, reading out loud, repeating facts with eyes closed, and putting information into rhythms like songs or poems. The text also mentions that some auditory learners benefit from background sound, though it also advises avoiding auditory distractions when they interfere. Kinesthetic or tactile learning is presented as learning through physical activity, doing rather than only listening or watching. The material estimates about 5% prevalence. These learners are described as doers, who explore through experimentation, prefer hands-on tasks, and often thrive in labs, workshops, gyms, simulations, or real-world practice. A highlighted claim is that kinesthetic learners' memory can be strengthened by their body's movements, remembering by mentally replaying actions. They may fidget, seek activity, and show high energy in classrooms. Suggested methods include building models, demonstrating principles, practicing techniques, and studying in a comfortable position, not necessarily at a desk.
Methodologically, the VAC assessment is presented as a simple tool to identify preferred learning modes and help structure information for better comprehension and recall. Test takers answer 15 questions by distributing 3 points across 3 statements, like 111, 210, or 300, based on preference, not correctness.
For paper and pencil scoring, each option maps to a learning mode. Scores are summed across items for each mode, then divided by 45 and multiplied by 100 to get percentages. A quick self-check is that the 3 percentages should add to 100. Online versions are described as auto-scoring. The interpretation is framed carefully. There's no right or wrong learning style. The assessment is meant to capture preference, how someone tends to receive information most comfortably, not a measure of intelligence or capability. The practical use is choosing study and communication methods that better match the learner's strengths.
The material includes a sample report where the learner shows a mixed preference: auditory at 40, visual at 38, and kinesthetic at 22. The interpretation suggests prioritizing audio-supported learning, like lectures and reading aloud, while also leveraging visual supports, like notes, summaries, and observing demonstrations.
The text also discusses norms, reliability, and validity. Norms are described from a cross-sectional sample of 810 secondary students across Singapore and India. Results reported include 61% multimodal preferences and 39% single-mode. Among single-mode learners, kinesthetic is highest at 26%, then visual at 7% and auditory at 6%. An implication mention is the meshing hypothesis, the idea that students learn best when instruction matches their learning style. The material also reports a strong positive correlation between VAK preferences and preferred teaching learning methods, with Pearson's R noted as 0.752, and some gender differences in preferred modes. Finally, the VAC framework is presented as broadly applicable: education, workplace dynamics, sports coaching, and even relationships. Benefits listed include maximizing learning potential, reducing frustration, improving study strategies, and guiding instruction and presentations for diverse audiences. It's also positioned as useful for team balance, conflict resolution, and career development planning. The key takeaway is that learning styles describe preferences in how people take in and work with information, seeing, hearing, and doing. The material emphasizes that many learners are multimodal and that preferences can vary by task and context. Using VAC thoughtfully can help learners and educators choose methods that make learning more efficient.